Welcome to the screencast, Writing Well-Organized Paragraphs. This is part 2 of 2, body paragraphs. Let's first review the learning outcomes for part 2. By the end of this presentation, you should be able to write body paragraphs with a clear purpose, topic sentence, signal words, evidence, and summary or wrap-up sentence. And you should be able to create successful content bridges to link your body paragraphs. And here's what we're going to do in the screencast in part 2. We'll first identify the shape of body paragraphs. Then we'll talk about their purpose. Then we'll move on to identifying the parts of a body paragraph. And finally, we'll compare weak and strong paragraphs. But what are body paragraphs exactly? Well, a body paragraph is any paragraph in your paper that isn't part of your introduction or your conclusion. And how about their shape? What is the shape of a typical body paragraph? Well, a good paragraph, a coherent body paragraph is often shaped like a whole paper. In part 1 of this presentation, we saw how whole papers take a general to specific to general shape, and body paragraphs are much the same. So the introduction starts generally by positioning the topic sentence early in the paragraph, and then the main part of the paragraph is narrower in focus, and then the conclusion or wrap-up part of the paragraph broadens out again. One thing that you really need to think about when you write your body paragraphs is the purpose. Each paragraph should have its own purpose. And your purpose may be to make a subclaim or give a reason that supports your overall thesis or position. It could be to define, explain, describe, report, or compare something to something else so your reader better understands your positioning and reasoning. It might be to qualify your position or to present a counter-argument or opposing view. Or it could be to rebut or refute that counter-argument, or to concede, to admit that some part of that counter-argument is valid. So there are many paragraphs in a paper, and each of those paragraphs is going to have a different purpose. It's really important, though, that your body paragraphs, each body paragraph has only one purpose. If a body paragraph has more than one purpose, then very likely your readers will be confused. Let's now look at the parts of typical body paragraphs. Most body paragraphs should start with a content bridge. This connects the idea expressed in the paragraph to the idea expressed in the previous paragraph. So in this way, you are linking your paragraphs. And very often, the content bridge is just a phrase or a clause at the beginning of your topic sentence. And your topic sentence should be where the point of your paragraph is contained. So that topic sentence should be close to the beginning, if not at the beginning, very close to the beginning of the paragraph. Sometimes you may have your content bridge maybe in one sentence, and then your topic sentence will be in the next sentence. Otherwise, as I just said, the content bridge and the topic sentence may be combined, maybe together in one sentence at the beginning of the paragraph. The middle section is usually the longest part of the paragraph, and it elaborates on or presents evidence for the point that you made in the topic sentence. And then your paragraph is going to have signal words, and these should come really all the way through the paragraph. These help guide the reader through the paragraph. And examples of signal words would be first, second, third, another, however. All these are signal words that guide the reader guide your reader through the logic of your paragraph. Then at the end of the paragraph, there should be a summary or concluding or wrap-up sentence. And this connects the point in the topic sentence with the evidence presented or to the overall argument or thesis of your paper. So this last sentence is optional. Not all paragraphs are going to have such a sentence, especially shorter paragraphs, but I certainly would consider putting in a concluding sentence or wrap-up sentence in your longer paragraphs, because a good topic sentence and a wrap-up sentence can really frame your paragraph and really give it a professional feeling, a sort of a finished feeling. This is a paragraph from a student paper. I'd like to read it and then identify the parts of the paragraph. But just before I do that, I'll just tell you that the light blue type is the content bridge. Then the burgundy part of the paragraph has the topic sentence. The signal words, connecting words are in darker blue. The sort of evidence or elaboration in the paragraph, that is in green, and the wrap-up sentence is in purple. So let's just read this out loud. I'll read it out loud, and then we can talk about the parts. Despite lack of research and effective policies, a number of agencies and band councils throughout the North are involved with programs aimed at increasing levels of youth employment. These programs generally fall into two categories: those aimed at extending schooling to make post-secondary education more accessible for Indigenous youth, and those whose mission is to prepare disadvantaged on-reserve youth to break the cycle of dependence and find stable employment. An example of a program in the first category is the Tungavik Federation of Nunavut. This program is intended to educate and train Inuit youth so that they are qualified for government and land claims-related positions. An example of a program in the second category is the Prince Albert Grand Council Call for Action program, which provides unemployed Dene youth with an 8-month training program. Both categories of program aim to enhance the qualifications of Northern Indigenous youth so they are better positioned to find employment in their region. Okay, so let's have a look here at the parts of this paragraph. Here's our content bridge with this phrase at the beginning of the topic sentence, and this harkens back to the topic of the previous paragraph, which was on the lack of research and effective policies. And it signals to the reader that you're moving away from this topic and you're starting a new topic. Your bridge should always be at the beginning of a paragraph, your content bridge. It should never be at the end of a paragraph. So this is perfectly placed. And here it's joined to the topic sentence as part of the topic sentence. Then we have our signal words, these programs, which guides the reader. It tells the reader that you're talking about the programs that were just mentioned in the topic sentence. Two categories, so the reader is clear about how many there are. And then we have an example, and we have the first category, another one, an example in the second category. So all of those guide the reader, all of those signal words guide the reader through the paragraph. And then we have our wrap-up sentence, which really, in many ways, just repeats and emphasizes what was in the topic sentence. So you can see how the topic sentence and the wrap-up sentence really create a frame for this paragraph. I have another example here, which again is the same color coding system. The light blue is the content bridge to the previous paragraph. Then it's attached, in this case it's attached to the topic sentence. Then we have the signal words are in darker blue, and the content of the paragraph, the examples, the elaboration, the evidence are in green, and then we have the wrap-up sentence in purple. I'll read this. Although there are many advantages to using radiant panels, ASHRAE also lists some disadvantages. Many of these disadvantages relate to improper design and control of the panels. such as a slow response time if the controls are not properly designed and installed. A slow response time means it takes a long time for the panel to adjust to the conditions in the room. Another disadvantage is the inability of the panels to add or remove moisture from a space, as radiant panels can only perform sensible heating or cooling within a space. In addition to the reasons discussed previously for the importance of moderating indoor humidity levels, there's also the added risk of condensation forming on the panels when they are used for cooling. To avoid these problems, panels are often coupled with standalone dehumidifiers in the space, or the latent load is handled by ventilating or drying the air before it enters the building. From the condensation problems and other disadvantages comes the motivation for designing a new heat and moisture transfer panel, the topic of this thesis. So this is a paragraph that comes from early on in a student's thesis, a student's engineering thesis. So let's have a look. Let's go through this and analyze the parts. Here's our content bridge, although there are many advantages to using radiant panels. So the previous paragraph had been about those advantages. So this bridge links the previous paragraph on advantages to this paragraph on disadvantages. In your top, this is announced in the topic sentence. The bridge is the same as the topic sentence there. The bridge and the topic sentence are combined here. And then we have our signal words, these disadvantages referring to the disadvantages in the topic sentence. Another disadvantage is in guiding the reader through the paragraph. In addition, and here we have where the student is reminding the reader of something already discussed. So signaling to the reader that something's already been discussed. And then we have these problems, again, signaling to the reader we're talking about the problems that were just raised. And then we have a wrap-up sentence that, in this case, the student writer connects the content of this paragraph with her overall topic. And that's certainly an option for your wrap-up sentences. So this is quite a nice example of a paragraph that has all the features that you want to put into your paragraph and is fairly easy to read because it has all those parts, all those features. Now we're going to compare two versions of a paragraph, a first and second draft. So we're going to read the two versions, and identify the author's purpose. We're going to try to decide, is it clear? Is it to claim, explain, report, or describe something? Then we're going to try to identify the topic sentence, the evidence that supports the point made in the topic sentence, and the concluding sentence. We're going to try to see if the concluding sentence connects the evidence with the point made in the topic sentence. So we'll start with version 1. I should say that this is a standalone paragraph, so it doesn't have a bridge. It doesn't have a bridge back to the previous paragraph. Okay, version 1. The first sighting of the platypus was reported in Australia in 1798. Preserved specimens were sent back to England, where they caused much scientific excitement. The platypus had a bill like a duck and laid eggs, but instead of having feathers, it had hair. The platypus is now considered a mammal, even though it lays eggs. The platypus has hair, which, when examined in detail, is structurally similar to that of non-egg-laying mammals. These features of the hair were most fully described by the famous biologist Leon Augustus Hausmann. Hausmann died in 1966. His scholarly expertise on the topic of mammalian hair often brought him into the public arena, and once he was even called on to provide expert opinion on a sacred Yeti scalp kept in a Himalayan monastery. Hausmann showed that the hair scales of the shaft of the platypus exhibit the typical mammalian shift in shape between the base and the tip. The platypus also produces a milky secretion that is used to suckle the newborns. The milk is produced not from teats, but from pores in the ventral abdominal skin. The milk has a much higher concentration of iron than that of the eutherian mammals. Hair and suckling of the young are features now universally acknowledged as definitive characteristics of mammals. The long and often controversial involvement of so many scientists in the documentation of platypus biology indicates the value of a socio-historical study of the engagement of the scientific community with this animal. Okay, so let's go over those questions again. What's the purpose of this paragraph? Is it clear? Is it to claim, explain, describe? Well, you probably agree with me that this paragraph does not have a really clear purpose. We're not sure as a reader why this paragraph has been written. We don't know whether the writer was intending to make a claim about the platypus being a mammal. We don't know whether he or she was writing this piece to describe the platypus, or whether maybe to say something about scientists like Leon Augustus Hausmann. The purpose of the piece is really unclear, partly because the topic sentence isn't really identifiable. And this was the next question that I had. Where is the topic sentence? Well, it's pretty hard to find. This is presumably a sort of context sentence. The first sighting of the platypus was reported in Australia in 1798. And then the next sentence about specimens doesn't really seem to be the topic sentence. The description of the platypus here, that it had hair, not feathers. And then, if indeed the purpose of the paragraph is to claim that the platypus is considered a mammal, then that is a very late introduction of the topic sentence. So possibly if that had been earlier, the purpose might have been clearer. And the next question we had was about the evidence or the elaboration. Does it back up or support or elaborate on the point made in the topic sentence? Well, impossible to tell since we don't know which sentence is the topic sentence. But we can say that there are too many extraneous points, right, about that Hausmann died in 1966, that he did this work on the Yeti scalp. All of these things really are extraneous to what seems to be, what we can surmise is the point of the paragraph. So it distracts the reader. How about signal words? Are there any signal words that help us here? There are a few signal words like these features, and I saw also in here somewhere, but they don't really guide the reader properly as you'd expect through the paragraph. Summary sentence, wrap-up sentence. Well, there is one here, but it doesn't really wrap up the paragraph. It talks about perhaps the need of a study of the engagement of the scientific community with this animal. So it doesn't really seem to be a very good wrap-up sentence. Okay, so now we've seen the first version. Let's look at the revised version and read that one. The classification of the platypus was first debated in 1798 when specimens of this newly discovered animal were sent to England from its native Australia, causing British scientists to puzzle over its combination of mammalian and navoreptilian features. Today, despite sharing some features with the birds and reptiles, the platypus is classified as a mammal. First, the platypus has hair, which when examined in detail is structurally similar to that of non-egg-laying mammals. These features of the hair were most fully described by Leon Hausmann, the preeminent mammalian hair expert of the 20th century. Hausmann showed that the shafts of the hair of the platypus exhibit the typical mammalian shift in shape between the base and the tip. Second, like other mammals, the platypus suckles its newborns by secreting from pores on its ventral abdominal skin an iron-rich milk. The engagement of scientists with the platypus has been a long one and is deserving of a study in itself. But today, scientists concur that the presence of hair and suckling of the young are sufficient to definitively place this animal in the mammalian class. Well, I'm sure you can agree that this paragraph is a lot clearer. Let's go through those questions. what is the purpose of this second version? Well, it's a lot more clear, isn't it? The purpose, it seems to me, and I'm sure it seems to you, is to indicate that the platypus is classified as a mammal. And everything about the paragraph really elaborates on that, right? So this is our topic sentence. The second sentence here. Today, despite sharing some features with the birds and reptiles, the platypus is classified as a mammal. So the first sentence in this paragraph really serves to introduce the context, to set up the topic sentence, which is the second sentence there. And how about the evidence? Well, the evidence is really here, isn't it? The platypus has hair. That's the first evidence for it being a mammal. And then we have second, it suckles its newborns in a certain way. So we have our evidence. And the evidence is made really clear here because the signal words are clear. We have first and we have second. So these two words really help guide us as readers through the paragraph. We have other signal words, these features as well, and that help us know what is being referred to. And how about the wrap-up sentence? The point is made really about the engagement of scientists here, but it's subjugated to the main point in the wrap-up sentence, that the fact that the platypus is classified as a mammal, and it sort of ties in the scientific evidence from the paragraph to the topic sentence. So I'm sure you'll agree this is a much improved paragraph from version 1. Oh, and I wanted to show you what a platypus looks like. This is an illustration of a platypus from Australia. So just to wrap up to the comparison here of versions 1 and 2. Version 1, the purpose is unclear. Version 2, it's clear. And partly why in version 1 the purpose is unclear is that the topic sentence isn't identifiable and not early enough. Version 2, the topic sentence is early in the paragraph and it reveals the author's purpose. In version 1, we've got too many extraneous points, like the sentence about the Yeti scalp. And in version 2, the extraneous points are either removed or they're combined with sentences that contain essential points so that they become not the main part of those sentences. No or very inadequate signal words guiding a reader. Very good, clear signal words, especially first and second. And a concluding sentence, but one that doesn't really wrap up the paragraph. And in version 2, a concluding sentence that connects the evidence to the topic sentence. I'd like to just go over some of the problems that students have when writing body paragraphs. First, they have paragraphs with multiple purposes and topics. And as I just said, a paragraph should have only one purpose. And they may have no topic sentence. As a reader, you can't identify the topic sentence, or the topic sentence isn't general enough to be an umbrella for all sentences in the paragraph. Sometimes the paragraph will present the evidence before the topic sentence, and the topic sentence may be located at the end of the paragraph. Those are all problems. Another problem is there may be insufficient evidence or elaboration, and the paragraph's too short and underdeveloped. And finally, there may not be a summary or concluding sentence that links the evidence to the point made in the topic sentence or to the overall argument of the paper. And as I've said, if you have a short paragraph, you may not need one. But otherwise, having this wrap-up sentence really gives a nice feeling of conclusion to your paragraphs. I'd like to sum up now. Strong body paragraphs begin with a content bridge that looks back to the previous paragraph. They have a single purpose reflected in the topic sentence, which is positioned early in the paragraph. They use signal words to guide the reader through the paragraph. They have an optional concluding sentence which links the evidence presented to the point made in the topic sentence or to the overall argument.